Welcome to Juba Global News Network. And I am Jasmine. Here are the top 10 global news headlines for January 18, 2026, based on major international developments from reliable sources like Reuters, BBC, Al Jazeera, and others. These reflect the most prominent stories circulating today, focusing on geopolitics, conflicts, and crises. 1. Trump escalates Greenland push with 10% tariffs on Denmark. And 7 other European countries, the U.S. President targets allies in his bid to control the Danish territory, prompting EU warnings of countermeasures and baffling NATO leaders. 2. EU prepares anti-coercion response to Trump's Greenland-related tariffs. European leaders, including Denmark's prime minister, refuse to be blackmailed, with potential restrictions on U.S. trade access under consideration. 3. Syrian government forces advance. Seize major oil field from Kurdish-held areas. Troops push into Raqqa outskirts. And capture key infrastructure amid talks of a possible ceasefire with the SDF. Kurdish leaders call for U.S. intervention. 4. Russia intensifies drone attacks on Ukraine, targeting nuclear-related energy systems. Strikes cause power outages affecting hundreds of thousands. Zelenskyy accuses Moscow of aiming to cripple the country through prolonged blackouts. 5. Iran's ongoing protests see internet restrictions ease slightly, but fears of deeper isolation persist. Authorities gradually restore access after a major shutdown, with death toll reports climbing and concerns over executions for protesters. 6. Deadly fire in Karachi shopping mall kills at least 6. Blaze causes parts of the building to collapse in Pakistan, with firefighters battling the incident. 7. U.S. Pentagon readies 500 troops for potential deployment to Minneapolis. Soldiers on standby amid escalating anti-ICE protests and immigration enforcement actions in Minnesota. 8. Avalanches in Austrian Alps kill multiple skiers. Incidents in Western Austria claim lives, highlighting risks during the winter season. 9. Portugal holds tight presidential election. Voting underway in a close race, with a far-right candidate potentially forcing a runoff. 10. Wildfires in Chile prompt state of catastrophe declaration. Over 20 evacuated in southern regions as blazes rage, per President Boric's announcement. These stories dominate global coverage, with heavy emphasis on U.S. foreign policy moves under Trump, Middle East-Syria developments, and the Russia-Ukraine war. For real-time updates, check major outlets like BBC, Reuters, or Al Jazeera as events evolve quickly.
Africa has a problem with counting votes. In Africa, everybody wins the election. In Africa, nobody loses an election. In other parts of the world, they can have voters in 50 million, in hundreds of millions, but in Africa, our voters never get past 10 million. But for some reason, when we are called upon to count our votes, we never can count the votes. This is an African disease, the inability to count votes. Africans elect the leaders that they deserve. When they are given the vote to vote, they are in the habit of electing thieves. And once they have elected the thieves, they expect the thieves to behave like angels. When the people do not know what they want, the government they create is nothing but a confederacy of fools.
We will still with breaking news. 8 NATO countries targeted by Trump over their stance on Greenland have issued a joint statement by Juba Global News Network, January 18, 2026. JubaGlobal.com, and I am Jasmine, your host today. In a rapidly escalating diplomatic crisis that has shaken the foundations of the transatlantic alliance, 8 NATO member nations, Denmark, Finland, France, Germany, the Netherlands, Norway, Sweden, and the United Kingdom released a strongly worded joint statement on Sunday, January 18, 2026, directly rebuking U.S. President Donald Trump's threats to impose punitive tariffs unless Denmark agrees to sell Greenland to the United States. The statement, coordinated among the foreign ministries of the involved countries and published via official channels including the German government's website, comes less than 24 hours after Trump announced via Truth Social that a 10% tariff on all goods exported from these nations to the U.S. would begin on February 1, 2026, escalating to 25% on June 1 if no deal is reached for the complete and total purchase of Greenland. The joint statement in full context. The 8 nations declared, "We stand in full solidarity with the Kingdom of Denmark and the people of Greenland. As members of NATO, we are committed to strengthening Arctic security as a shared transatlantic interest. The pre-coordinated Danish exercise, Arctic Endurance, conducted with allies, responds to this necessity. It poses no threat to anyone. Tariff threats undermine transatlantic relations and risk a dangerous downward spiral. We will continue to stand united and coordinated in our response. We are committed to upholding our sovereignty." The declaration explicitly references the recent Arctic Endurance reconnaissance mission in Greenland, which involved small contingents from these countries at Denmark's invitation. Officials described the deployment as routine and transparent, aimed at assessing conditions for potential future NATO exercises in the high north amid rising Russian and Chinese activities in the Arctic. Leaders from the group reinforced the message individually, clusters close as a label probably message pain might. Frederiksen reiterated that Europe will not be blackmailed. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer called the tariffs completely wrong when applied to allies pursuing collective NATO security. French officials, including President Emmanuel Macron's circle, emphasized no intimidation would sway their position on sovereignty issues in Ukraine, Greenland, or elsewhere. The European Union leadership echoed this unity. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen and European Council President Antonio Costa issued a joint note expressing full solidarity with Denmark and the people of Greenland, while EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas warned that such divisions play into the hands of adversaries like Russia and China. Trump's escalation and rationale. Trump's announcement framed the tariffs as a direct response to what he called the country's very dangerous game of sending military personnel to Greenland for purposes unknown. He has repeatedly argued that U.S. control of Greenland is essential for national security, citing rare earth minerals, strategic positioning against Russian expansion, and countering Chinese influence in the Arctic. Under the existing 1951 U.S. Denmark Defense Agreement, the United States already operates Pitofik Space Base in Greenland, providing significant military access without full ownership. Trump has dismissed this as insufficient, reviving his 2019 proposal to purchase the island, and intensifying rhetoric since returning to office. The tariffs, if implemented, would mark a historic use of economic coercion against core NATO allies, potentially overriding existing trade frameworks like the U.S. EU agreement capping certain tariffs and the U.S.-UK bilateral deal. Reactions and broader fallout protests erupted across Denmark and Greenland over the weekend, with thousands in Nuuk and Copenhagen chanting slogans like "Hands off Greenland" and "Greenland is not for sale." Polls show near universal opposition in Greenland to any U.S. takeover. In the U.S., bipartisan criticism has emerged. Senators Jen Shaheen, DNH, and Tom Tillis, RNC, co-chairs of the Senate NATO Observer Group, condemned the move as harmful to American interests, businesses, and alliances. Senate. Lisa Murkowski, RAK, called it shameful, highlighting risks to U.S. families from higher costs. The EU has called an emergency ambassadors meeting to discuss countermeasures, which could include reciprocal restrictions on U.S. market access. Some European Parliament figures like Manfred Weber suggested pausing progress on any U.S. EU trade deals. Analysts warn this standoff could fracture NATO at a critical moment, as the alliance grapples with supporting Ukraine against Russia's invasion. Divisions among allies, they argue, benefit Moscow and Beijing. As tariffs loom and diplomatic backchannels remain active, the Greenland crisis has evolved from a quirky real estate proposal into a major test of transatlantic unity. Whether dialogue or escalation prevails will shape U.S.-Europe relations for years to come. Juba Global News Network is monitoring developments closely. Stay tuned for updates at jubaglobal.com.
It is important for us to challenge the authoritarian ruler again and again and again until we eventually get our freedom, because not challenging him means giving up. Yes, we know that all odds are up against us, the military, the police, and all institutions of state. But also it is clear that the people of Uganda are standing firmly behind the forces of change that I am leading. So we are challenging Museveni first and foremost to remove any iota of doubt to the world, especially in the international community, and to remove all the pseudo-legitimacy that he lies the international community with. And therefore, the people of Uganda will be able to fight for their rights while the world will stand with them. That is why we're running again.
In 2021, you contested the results. You talked about the fact that the results were essentially all but guaranteed, that the voting was rigged. You contested the results, but obviously it didn't lead to any meaningful outcome. Talk to us about what you have learned this time around. What are some of the lessons that you learned from the last time you ran back in 2021? I remember interviewing you then. What lessons have you learned from them that you're applying now, Bobby?
First and foremost, we've learned that dictators might not go with the first or second or third push, but eventually they fall if we don't give up. We have learned that we have to devise various means of communication, but most importantly, we've learned that we have to send back the responsibility to the population. In the previous election, I was under house arrest immediately after casting my ballot, which I expect the same thing now. As we speak right now, more than 730 of our colleagues are in detention. They've been arrested. Many are abducted and are missing. Some have been killed, but we are pushing on. But again, this time, we don't anchor it on an individual. We don't anchor it on myself. Yes, I'm the presidential candidate. Yes, I'm the leader. But we have tasked the people of Uganda to take charge of the campaign, to take charge of the voting, of the vote protection, but most importantly, in case Museveni rigs the election, like all signs are showing, the people of Uganda must rise up and demand for their victory.
What message do you have for young Ugandans who feel disillusioned about politics? I mean, we've seen in neighboring Tanzania, for example, just a few months ago, that election was also widely contested, and there was a massive crackdown as well on opposition voices as well. Just talk to us about how young Ugandans who feel disillusioned about politics, who feel that this time the vote is all but certain and that it is rigged, how do they stand up for peaceful and democratic change in your country?
To the young Ugandans, we've constantly told them that democracy works. But democracy only works when people stand firm and defend it. Therefore, we would have opted for violent means, but we don't believe in violence. Violence has never gotten nations anywhere. We believe in voting firmly and outstandingly many, and then defend that election, defend that victory. We've called upon the people of Uganda to exercise their constitutional right. Our constitution, Article 29, provides that the people of Uganda can peacefully, unarmed, protest any wrongdoing. And that is what we're calling upon the people of Uganda in case General Museveni rigs the election this time.
Obviously, campaigning, Bobby, is very different from governing. Just in terms of your plans, I mean, what can you share with us if you ever were to reach the top job in Uganda? What would you share? What can you share about your plans in terms of tackling the economic hardship that has plagued the young people of Uganda, in terms of tackling corruption, which is obviously a massive issue as well, in terms of uniting Ugandans across ethnic lines? What would be your priority, Bobby, from day one?
Thank you. The issue of leading our country is not a matter of if, it is a matter of when, because we are confident. We've seen that all across the country, and we are sure that the people of Uganda will entrust the next generation with the leadership. Back in the day, our problems were three: ignorance, disease, and poverty. But now our problem can squarely be circled into one: corruption, massive corruption, which has been institutionalized, which has been turned into a currency and as a way of living and a way of staying in power. We want to crack down on that corruption when we take power. But most importantly, we also want to re-empower the institutions of state, and end the state capture, ensure that the judiciary and the legislature are independent and can check the executive. That way, we will be able to stop the one-man rule and have knowledgeable, talented, and able people to bring minds together and lead our country ahead.
Bobby Wine, live for us there. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us again.
Fellow Ugandans, my name is Chagulanyi Sentamu Robert, also known as Bobby Wine. Today is Saturday, the 17th of January 2026, and the time is 9 a.m. in the morning. My wife and I have been under house arrest since the 15th of January when we had elections, and yesterday our house was raided by some police officers together with a number of other unknown individuals in plain clothes. They used ladders to climb over our fence. They cut off our electricity, they cut off our cameras, and they were being assisted by a helicopter that was hovering in the sky of our compound and providing them light as they were doing what they were doing. Amidst that raid, I was able to use my skills and escape my house. But I know they're looking for me. But even if they succeed and get me and do whatever, I want to say this to you, fellow Ugandans. First and foremost, we reject whatever is being declared by Mr. Byabakama, because those so-called results that they're declaring are fake and they don't in any way reflect what happened at the polling stations or what is at the declaration forms. And therefore, those results, the so-called results, are fake. After arresting almost all our agents, after ballot stuffing, and after shutting off the internet, the regime is trying to once again rig the elections. What happened in the polling station is a completely different story, and we demand that the internet be restored and the rightful declaration forms and tally sheets from the districts are uploaded on the internet so that the people of Uganda can see the rightful results in transparency. We also demand that they hold whatever declaration is going on until the internet is restored and until the people of Uganda can follow up on the results in transparency. We are glad that there are protests, and we encourage the people of Uganda to resist any rigging and to resist any effort of subduing their voice. We also want to call upon the media, which has deliberately ignored what is happening in the country. There are widespread protests across the country, and these widespread arrests, and people are being killed. For example, in Butambala, at the house of Honorable Mwanga Chivumbi, 10 people were shot and killed in one house by the police. In Waise, 4 people have been shot dead. In Mukono, 4 people were shot dead. In Machinge, we have information that 3 people were shot dead. And in Kayonga and Luwero, we are yet to get the statistics of the people that have been killed and what exactly is happening. We want to firmly call upon the people of Uganda to reject these fake results that are being read at Ruboa by Mr. Byabakama and his Electoral Commission, and we want to call upon the people of Uganda to non-violently protest and reject any effort to subvert their voice and demand that the rightful results are announced. I thank you for God and my country.
You gotta get low. Lean, there you go. Kläm man här. När jag får det med folk är 3 stycken här.
to keep away from the landing zone for the other guy, because the snowmobile are rolling a lot.
Okay, easy leg.